Hello to all who are attending right now. Just want to say welcome. We are going to give it 1 or 2 minutes and then we're going to get started. Thank you.
While we're waiting, just want to take this opportunity for thanking everyone for joining us. Let's be honest, we've all been on a lot of Zoom calls lately and a lot of things remotely. And so to get engaged at this level with climate change, with the importance, with what we see going on, is just a really powerful step to show to our local leaders. So before we really get kicked off, I want to make sure that we convey our greatest appreciation for getting involved, for all the other actions you've taken with climate change here locally, regionally, and nationally. So it's a very exciting time, and a lot to be done. Okay. So I think we should just kick this off. People are joining us, but I really would like to take this moment to welcome everyone to Climate Week in South Lake Tahoe. Climate is impacting our quality of life here at Lake Tahoe. Tourists are flooding our town as they escape from climate change effects of heat and fire down in the valleys. Scientists say climate change is a major threat to Lake Tahoe's clarity, which took a sharp decline in our overall kind of beauty, keeping Tahoe blue within the last few years. We also aim to become a truly sustainable community that models solutions to climate change, and in so doing provides widespread jobs and economic benefits to the Tahoe community, residences, and businesses. We envision visitors being inspired by what they learn at Tahoe, which they take back home to help improve their own communities. This week is a slate of inspiring Tahoe-based activities, are hosting conversations aimed at engaging more people at the point of taking action. We seek to convince you that your individual contribution is necessary towards achieving the city's 100% by 2032 and 80% greenhouse gas reductions by 2040, and the worldwide goal of cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030. We're cutting down to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. In fact, we're going to be working with a lot of partner groups here locally, regionally, and nationally to make that goal a reality. And this climate series is the first step in that direction. So again, thank you so much for joining us. As we're doing things here locally, it's important to point out what's going to be taking place at a global level. November 2021, world leaders are going to come together on the issue of climate change to pledge immediate, substantive action on a systemic policy level. And that action is what's going to hopefully inspire us as local climate activists. So, the content of today's event is pretty straightforward. The folks you're going to be seeing are a lot of climate change activists here working at the local level. What we wanted to do is really just share our stories, because one of the things we found in climate change activism is the hardest thing is just simply getting involved, right? There's a lot of barriers to entry. How do we cross those barriers? How can anyone get involved? And so really today you're going to have a conversation, really free-flowing conversation between 6 people, each in a different place in their life, each engaged in the issue of climate change slightly differently. The real goal of this event is to, again, have just a really free-flowing dialogue of activists, why we got involved, what we see our role is, how anyone really can do it, and really what we want to do is inspire others, and hopefully you'll commit and to join us or some other climate change related activity that fits more to who you are. So with that, I well, actually I think it's better probably having the other folks introduce themselves for a minute. And so I will pass it over to the moderator of today's event. And real quickly, Sarah Ledden was the heart and inspiration behind this event. She came up with the idea after seeing something from the TED folks. So really at the onset, want to make sure we highlight Sarah, all her efforts and all her leadership on this effort. So turning it over to you, Sarah, thank you so much.
Hey, Nick, thanks so much for helping us get started there. I was trying to get us going live on Facebook with this feed and kind of messed with our screens a little bit at the beginning there, but we are live on Facebook now. Thank you guys so much. Thank everybody for joining us. Thanks for sharing your lunch hour with us. I will be kind of doing a little bit of facilitation in the background today, and I just want to invite all of our attendees to use the chat function. I'll be keeping an eye on that. If you have specific questions for any of the attendees or technical issues, go ahead and use that chat box. You also have the Q&A, which is really the best way for you to ask specific questions about engaging on climate locally. I'll go ahead and keep an eye on that, verbalize that to the group, and we can add that to the discussion. So I invite you to do that. If any of you really feel like you want to be part of the panel today, I invite you to use the raise hand function, and we can work to promote you as a panelist for a moment so you can engage with the panel here. So this is really, you know, we're part of your community. We're excited that you're joining us today. We just want to have this conversation, and we want you all to know that we're just volunteers, right? Like, we're all here. We're not getting paid to be here. We're pooling together our knowledge of how to put on a Zoom event and bring this to you to try to inspire more people into taking action. Because I don't know about you guys, but it's for me, it helps me sleep better at night. I feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself, and that I can really contribute, not just to this community, but to, you know, worldwide need. And it's been an honor to work with a group of really inspiring people. So.
No, definitely. I think maybe a good place to get started is just, you know, if everyone wants to quickly say, you know, how they got in, you know, how'd you get involved in the issue of climate change? I mean, I think that's always the best place to start. You know, I'll go quickly first. You know, really it was just, I had an educational background in the environmental sciences. You know, climate change was the you know, kind of most important issue to me because, you know, although I was interested in the environmental sciences, I love the outdoor recreational world, and science is kind of how I got there. And when I saw the impacts it was going to have to the things I loved, kind of to Sarah's point, I just realized like I had to do what I could do, whether it was the smallest thing in the world, didn't matter. I just needed to be able to sleep at night, and I needed to be able to have the conscience and ability to tell my kids that I really did what I could do. And that's how I got involved. So, like, you know, everyone else just kind of jump in. Hey, you know, maybe Bob would be a good place to start. Bob, you know, if you could share kind of, you know, what brought you to this issue.
Yeah, well, you know, my background, or a lot of what I'm concerned about these days is education for our younger children and those in college. I'm on an advisory board down at UC Berkeley where I graduated. And I'm on the LTCC Foundation board up here. And it just struck me after a while, wait a minute, we've got fires, we've got all kinds of issues here. Why am I not working on this as well? And so Trish and I have kind of joined forces. I've worked with the college here. We're going to have a great, exciting day tomorrow. Bonnie Turnbull, who for 4 or 5 years been really researching the climate, she'll be making a video presentation. And we have 2 experts from the California Tahoe Conservancy. I just want these kids to understand, you know, we've created this problem. We're here and we're passing this on to these kids. It's time for them to recognize what's here. It's time for us to help in any way we can. That's why I'm spending time on this. That's why this is a major issue for me. So I can't think of anything I would rather do than trying to turn their people's heads around and make them start working on this. Trish, do you want to start?
I think I missed the end of your question, Bob, but I can share a little bit about my interest in being just active with climate change here in Tahoe. I just think it's the most critical issue of our time, and I've been in Tahoe for a lot of years, and I have 2 little kids. And you know, several years ago, I ended up on this email chain for the Tahoe Climate Change Action Network. I'm not sure if that's what you were calling it at the time, Nick. It might have been the South Lake Tahoe chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody organized something. And I just felt like, oh, this is what all I want to do is hang out with people that are trying to address this issue. And I finally made it to a meeting, and it's been really awesome ever since, just to be able to work with people that are so, you know, share this kind of concern, for, you know, to make change our trajectory as it relates to the future of civilization. I sometimes get into dark places about ecological and societal collapse, and this has been a place where I feel like there is opportunity for change, and it's been amazing to see that we've been able to start making those changes here in our community. And so even though I feel like I don't have as much time as I'd like to, to participate sometimes, I do as much as I can, and I think it's a testament that we all have the opportunity to make a difference. Now, I'll kick it over to you, John. What's your interest in climate change? Why are you on this call? What do you do in town?
Yeah, well, I've been involved in environmental advocacy and programs starting and leading for about as long as Sarah's been alive. But it was, just like you mentioned, Trish, and Bob, you hinted at, when I became a dad 14 years ago to our now 9th grade daughter, Rosie, it really brought home to me the stakes. So this is for everyone listening who's a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle who cares about the future of, want few people in the future to have the experiences that you've been able to enjoy. It really just brought home to me the critical importance of doing everything we can while we can to leave a livable world for our kids and grandkids. Bottom line, to me, that should be the collective mission statement of we the people of the earth. And if we were serious about that, we would join forces in cooperative action, not only in our community and in the country and in the world, which we started to do in the Paris Climate Accord, et cetera, and hopefully we'll get back to it. But locally, I really think that being Lake Tahoe is primarily at risk from climate change. That's the biggest current ecological threat, is an opportunity and a requirement to make responding to climate change our number one focus here. And in so doing, we can also create jobs, put people to work in building that renewable, climate resilient economy. That's kind of work I do. We'll be talking about that on Wednesday. So hopefully you can come to talk about jobs and things like renewable energy and electric vehicles and forest thinning and wood milling and building sustainable green homes and putting people to work as part of the solution. And then ultimately, I just think, let's rethink what Tahoe is all about. We have millions of visitors. What if we could inspire each of them to have the lowest possible impact when they come here? I know all locals would be happy with that outcome, right? They would have a better experience, get them out of their cars, get them walking around, get them on electric buses, seeing solar everywhere, and go home inspired to say, wow, I went to Tahoe, had this great experience of doing these amazing things on climate change, because I get that climate change is affecting Lake Tahoe, which I love, and I'm going to be part of that solution where I live. So I think we have a need to take transformative action and an opportunity to build on that action, to put people to work and to inspire both locals and visitors to be part of the solution in a way that does protect Lake Tahoe in our lifetimes and in the lifetimes of our kids and those who are yet to come.
That's why I love working with you, John.
Me too.
Well said. We haven't heard from Sue yet, though. Let's see. What's brought you to this issue, Sue?
My name is Sue Chandler. I'm the chair of the local Democratic Club up here. I've been very interested in climate change since I was in university. I went to the University of Maine, and I was a sophomore during the first Earth Day, and I had the task of organizing the first Earth Day at the University of Maine. And ever since then, I've been very dedicated to protecting the environment. Probably about, 30 years after that, I started to realize how important politics was to protecting the environment. I think my first interaction with that was during the election between Al Gore and George Bush. And here we had somebody that believed in climate change and science, and somebody that believed in the oil industry and doing everything possible to promote the oil industry. So I started getting a little bit more involved then. However, at that time I was living overseas, and it wasn't really possible to get boots on the ground and try to make a change at a local level. We now have a president that doesn't believe in science or climate change. We have a congressional representative that doesn't believe in climate change or science. And we have to do something to change that. It really hit home in the election of 2018 when in the Virginia House of Representatives, they call it the delegation, there was a tie between a Democrat and a Republican. They both had 13,680 votes. And how was that election decided? It was decided by drawing a name out of a hat. And as a result of that, the Virginia House of Representatives became dominated by Republicans, which totally put them backwards many, many years as far as climate initiatives. So in here, it's, I think, really important that we think about climate change and the policies of politicians as we're casting our votes. And the webinar that I'll kind of be hosting on Thursday, I think, yes, Thursday. We're gonna look at some of the local candidates. They're gonna have a chance to talk to you about how they feel about climate change. We're hoping that Bren Kennedy will be on the call. She's running for Congress against McClintock. We're hoping that Pamela Schwartz will be on the call. She's running for a state senate against Brian Dahl. So I hope that you'll join us and enjoy.
No, I think it's great, and it's really interesting to see, you know, how different people from different backgrounds have, you know, come to the issue of climate change. You know, and one of the things I struggled with most, probably, well, I still struggle with it. Who am I kidding? Is really the question of kind of it seems so large, and it seems so big, and it seems like you're just a drop in the bucket. And I don't know if I will. And I'll just speak for myself, I don't know if I'll ever get beyond that point. But there was a lot of things I started to do differently that made me look at the issue of climate change differently, and what I was doing, and, you know, what we could do as a community. And so, you know, kind of want to just open it up to the group is, you know, your thoughts of kind of local action versus kind of global action. Because one of the things I've thought for a long time is energy, the things we needed to do to solve the issue of climate change take place at the local level, at the regional level, but it's framed at an international level, and rightfully so. But part of me has always believed that that's being done to make us feel helpless, to make us feel like there's nothing we can do. Establishing a compost, you know, system at your local school seems pretty straightforward. Addressing global climate change does not. And so, you know, really part of the exercise's goal is, you know, again, talking about what can be done locally at the national level, but just trying to break down those barriers of, you know, feeling that you're helpless, that there's nothing you can do because that's such a big problem. So really getting engaged with the people on this call was a big step, and start, you know, running for offices and changing policies. But just, you know, for other people on the call that might be interested, how do you kind of juggle with that, the daunting realities of how big the problem is meets to, you know, what you can get engaged with here locally? I'll just throw that up to anybody. Actually, I'll throw it to you first, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think a lot of us get kind of feel this sense of despair, and that we can't do much because we're just, you know, we're just one little person, is that drop in the bucket idea. And what I was inspired recently by the TED organization, and I'm going to drop a link in the chat box for our attendees to see if this might also be inspiring to you all. The TED organization they're looking at climate change, and then they're saying, hey, the science is telling us that there's less than a decade to make a huge dent in net carbon emissions worldwide. This is going to be hard, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible if a lot of people join in this effort, right? And it's going to be little communities like ours here in South Lake Tahoe, and it's going to be government level stuff. But really, the biggest bang for our buck is going to be collective level action. And this really intrigues me. And I can also say, you know, I'm in a graduate program right now. I'm studying climate change in business. I'm not studying climate science. I have a science angle, but I'm wondering, like, how can business help us change this? How can government help us address this? how can I do this on a personal level? And I realized that I'm not going to do a whole lot by just doing my own thing in my own little house. I want to get together with other people and figure out how to address things at a systemic level. How can I get my electricity company to be providing me renewable energy instead, so how can I change what's even available to me that's where I'm interested now, and putting my time and my effort. And that's why I tried to join up with some other folks, and like all of you on this call are doing a lot in this community, and you've really inspired me. And I want to say one last thing too before I tag somebody else, is that I'm new to this community. I've only lived here a couple of years, and it's hard to move to a new place in my 40s where I didn't know anybody in this whole town. And I know there's a lot of new people that are moving to our community right now because they're realizing they can work from anywhere, right? And I'm on our Nextdoor app seeing new people moving into the community all the time. And I just think that teaming up with folks who share your passions, for where in advocacy, and maybe it's climate change, maybe it's other things, but team up and do something for this new community that you're part of, and you'll make some new friends in the meantime as well. So it's been a great way for me to get engaged with my new place and to feel like I'm doing something bigger, for the grander community out here. So
I wanted to jump in because it occurs to me, I mean, I think we're talking a bit amongst ourselves, and we all know what we have done the last 5 years as relates to climate, but if you're not paying super close attention to climate stuff in Tahoe, there's actually a lot that's happened in the last 5 years. And I know it's, addressing climate change has become a priority pretty much of every agency and organization. It's in there somewhere in the policy and the rhetoric. And it's just a matter of like actually implementing and making decisions based on those policies and rhetoric. So a group of folks, including some of the folks on this call, were instrumental in getting the city of South Lake Tahoe to pass 100% renewable resolution in 2017 that committed the city to transitioning community-wide electricity to 100% renewable sources by 2032. So that is already adopted, it's on the table, and we are here collectively, and hopefully with anybody else on this call and others in the community, to make sure the city is able to execute on that resolution. And they also passed, as part of that resolution, a commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions 80% below baseline levels, which we identified as the 2015 greenhouse gas emissions. And we completed, with the help of some Civic Spark members who were working through the Sierra Nevada Alliance with the City of South Lake Tahoe last year, the first ever City of South Lake Tahoe greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which detailed where all our greenhouse gas emissions come from, so we can start actually implementing policies and making changes that reduce the major sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Right now, there's a draft climate action plan that's up for adoption at the City of South Lake Tahoe, the first ever climate action plan for the city, which includes specific policy changes in order to make that resolution a reality. And there's like proposals at the Lake Tahoe Unified School District. They adopted the Healthy and Green Schools resolution with the help of people like John a few years ago. And I think it's up to all of us and students and everybody that participates in our community democracy to be aware of those documents and to keep pushing on leaders to remember them and to recognize them as priorities of our community that they haven't adopted, and that if we actually execute on those, and you believe that other communities around the world are doing the same thing, I mean, that's where I think, well, I have agency here, we can do this here. And I just hope that there are people like me and like others on this call and other places and other communities that are also pushing harder in their local governments, because that's how it will happen.
Okay, I'm going to pick up the baton from you right there. They always put the weakest runner, the third in the 4-person relay. So here I go. So I just want to pick up on this idea of what we can do, connecting Sarah locally and globally. We used to say think globally, act locally, but now we can think of act locally, informed by global action, but in turn networking globally. So act locally, network globally, or at least nationwide. So picking up on the 100% renewable action we did here, under the erstwhile leadership of Sir Nick here. We're the 24th city, I believe, in the country to pass that resolution. That number is now 160, which includes also 10 counties, 8 states, as part of a global network. So one thing, being a little engine that could perhaps, in Tahoe, I mean, we're not little when you add in the tourists. So I was saying earlier, if you imagine everyone who visits here being part of our larger community of inspiration and action, that's a big opportunity to educate and help them act where they live, is spreading our tentacles in lots of places. But we showed, that we could be nimble and quick and bold when we passed that in 2017, I think it was, Nick. And then who knows how many others that inspired to follow suit. Certainly we were the first in the Sierra Nevada. So what can we be the next first in doing? Maybe we can be one of the first to actually implement. I think 2032 is a bit conservative. I think we can do better than that, a lot better. And how can we electrify portions of our, certainly transportation and other sectors? How can we just model solutions? How can we be a model sustainable tourism destination that models resilience to climate change, and in turn inspires other tourism economies to follow suit? So I think we're not going to solve climate change in no matter what we do in Lake Tahoe. Let's face it, it takes the entire world. However, we can inspire and create ripples that join together with others throughout the world and learn from them, and at the same time that together in this tapestry we can confront and slow down climate change. So I think that's, to me, is the inspiration to act locally. It's not as if it's like, oh, what's the point because we're a little drop in the sea. It's like, let's act on our ability. Let's build on our successes that Trish enumerated and inspire others to also act boldly, act quickly, act innovatively, act together. And I think ultimately, when you think about a divided country and a divided town, this is something we really should be coming together. And it's like, if we care about our kids' future, if we save for their college and pay for them to go to school, then we should be caring about the climate they're going to inherit. They're doing all these things on, and that's a shared concern of all people everywhere, in my opinion.
I want to add a point too. We've been talking about all of these organizations, this being one, and all of these other things. I think there's a personal responsibility as well. And I see this so clearly in, we've got kind of a dual population here. We have people who've retired up here, and that includes myself and my wife and our friends, as well as others that we've met up here. We also have people who are native up here, who were born here or they moved in early after their career and started it. And I want to look at it on a more personal basis. And so as a retiree, I'm looking at friends who are traveling all over jets, 3 or 4 trips a year. And I'm saying that just doesn't make sense. So yes, there are these things we can do, but you've got to take a personal accountability. Maybe 1 trip to Europe's fine, or 1 to Latin America, or whatever, but not 20 trips or 10 trips. And I've got people who do that. And it's just saying that we've got to think in our personal consumption of energy, how can we play that down? Now, of course, we should be involved in these kinds of activities. And part of what I'm doing with students is trying to educate them. This is their work in the page. And I don't think we can we'll turn it quickly if we don't cut back our own use. But likewise, these kids need to understand where to go. And so whether they're in science or not, they're going to appreciate what's here. Maybe they'll become a politician who will one day, sponsor some legislation in a city or a state or a government. But I do think there's the personal responsibility that's so important, and start working on your own lifestyle. And from there, get involved in other things. I think it's going to take all this. It's going to take a personal responsibility as well as a group responsibility. So we all need to be on board with that.
Thanks. Well said, Bob.
I think that's really important. One of the things that I'd been thinking about it late, especially as the COVID pandemic hit, was I practicing what I preached? Was I willing to commit to everything I was going to ask somebody else to do? And so the answer was no. And I think most of us probably live in some level of that same reality, right? So we're, as a community, going forward with a huge regional solar assessment, but I didn't have solar on my house. So I put solar on my house. I started composting in my house. To Bob's point, it's kind of the internal meets the external. And so really, I think the standard I set for myself was I would never ask somebody else to do something I myself would not do. And I wouldn't ask someone to invest in a way that I myself would not be willing to invest. So I wanted to make sure that I was, forward with all those things, because if not, then, people will see your, hypocrisy and see where you're falling short. And, I guess when COVID came, I just couldn't, I had to make sure that, to Bob's point, what I was doing aligned with what I was recommending others to do as well.
I was inspired by COVID in the sense of giving me hope that big changes can be made at a societal, that like we're all doing our own little thing, and then seeing how that collectively plays out was really inspiring, because it is going to take that level of change and commitment to meet these climate goals. And I think we are going to have to we're all looking at ourselves and our own little piece, and we're hopefully all going to take a step to toward a collective impact as well, and being thoughtful about both levels that we can address too.
I'm currently monitoring the chat, and there's a very good comment which maybe some of us might want to respond to, particularly maybe John, Nick. I would love to hear success stories about initiatives in our communities around Tahoe neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great successes and this really speaks to the naysayers in your world, because you're going to have a lot of naysayers in your world, is that when the city of South Lake Tahoe passed the 100% renewable resolution, everyone said, well, how are you going to meet that goal? How are you going to, get there? How are you going to do all these various different things? And to be quite candid, we didn't have all those answers. But you're never able to start on a journey unless you put your foot out the front door, right? The lessons learned by Tolkien and The Hobbit. And so what did we do? We took that step out of the front door and we made that 100% renewable commitment. And what happened? A regional solar provider reached out to us and said, hey, we saw you made this commitment. We want to work with you. Other communities saw what we did. Nevada City, Truckee saw what we did, and they followed suit and did their own 100% renewable commitment. They're now joining us in the solar assessment process. I happen to sit on the South Tahoe Public Utility District Board. One of the great things is we had our 70th birthday last week, and we had a Zoom call very much like this. And the general manager, John Thiel, was giving the history of where we started to where we're going. And it was all about sustainability and renewable energy, and the fact that we're going to be able to provide our water systems with renewable energy. And the only reason that happened is fundamentally, I'd like to say it was me running for the board, but no. It was everyone in the community willing to put their vote. It was everyone in the community willing to show up to marches. It was everybody in the community willing to like these things and do these various different things, right? Because I can tell you, I used to talk a lot before too, and no one ever listened to me, right? So it's the us that makes this work. That's the success story. That's the us. The fact that when we made our 100% renewable commitment, both chambers showed up to support us. Republicans and Democrats showed us. We celebrated a climate strike. As Sue mentioned earlier, she's the leader of the Democratic Club here locally. We had a Republican speak at that event as well. To John's point, so there's a lot here going on that we should be very, very proud of. We have John running for the South Lake Tahoe City Council to join Devil Middlebrook, who's also a member of the 100% Renewable Committee, to get another member on there. We have elected officials in every other regional entity, and that really started from just the back of a library, honestly, and a lot of people willing to put in a lot of hard work.
I want to add that Trish alluded to this earlier. The schools also passed a resolution similar to the city's commitment, and it also touched a number of sectors. One recent success story is acquiring a couple of electric buses, and with an intention to acquire half electric buses for its fleet in the next couple of years. And also the school has done a raft of energy efficiency lighting upgrades. The city is gone through energy efficiency audits, and in addition to installing solar and more to be installed next year, is also looking at swapping out its street lights for LED lights and building lights, which will save money. And again, when the city does things like takes the 100% renewable commitment, acts on it with the solar provider Nick mentioned, who, by the way, is doing lease financing. They pay back the money with energy savings, or the energy they're producing. This next round will really be looking at employing local installers to put up that solar. So again, we see energy savings, meeting our climate goals in a way that put local folks to work and hopefully better paying jobs than they might have had in other sectors of our economy. So there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of, wins across the board. I used to be at Liberty Utilities, and so we had, huge numbers of people, it's on a personal level, putting on solar on their house. We install solar in our house and pay like 0 electrical bills anymore. And people are now, you see an uptick in electric vehicle ridership. Tahoe has a real chance to lead that in terms of deploying infrastructure. So, and then I think just, an opportunity for us to grow and to expand. I think we really need to touch all parts of the community. So Latino and Hispanic community, I think we could all do a better job of making sure that we're bringing all folks to the table, to hear all perspectives, and to make sure that all parts of our community are both benefiting from a transition to renewable energy on a household level, but also benefiting in terms of employment opportunities. We've had a lot of environmental work done in Tahoe over the last 20, 30 years, but a lot of folks in our community haven't benefited from that, in terms of a job. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. And I think that's something where we can all, put all our heads together to help make happen.
A small example that I've been involved with is I live in Tahoe Keys, and I'm on the Water Quality Committee. And the one thing that I've learned by participating in this committee is the amount of collaboration that exists between a neighborhood like Tahoe Keys, the Tahoe Regional Authorities, Lahontan Water, Save Lake Tahoe, League to Save Lake Tahoe, even the Sierra Club, in order to try to clean up the water and deal with the invasive species in the lake.
Mm-hmm.
I think the real success at some level as well is just kind of the fact we continue to grow and continue to innovate. And so, folks that are, watching this, if anyone's interested in joining our group, I mean, that's really how things go. And even if you're not interested in joining this group, there's so many things to get involved with. If you're interested in anything, I think just let us know and we can help point you in the right direction to help get involved.
I'm putting the website for the Tahoe Climate Change Action Network is in the chat box. And again, just to remind everybody, that's the entity that we're here representing this week, and we're putting on the whole series of webinars all week, today through Saturday. And you can find all those events listed in the virtual events tab on that website.
One of the things I was interested in, because again, one of my real goals, hopefully for the session, was to just, to talk about it from a real perspective and hopefully remove entries to barrier, to getting involved. And so I was curious, if any of the panelists had any, barriers that they saw, walls that when they were working on the issue of climate change, people try to put up for them. I could speak to a few personally, like I do not have a PhD in anything. So I got a lot of comments that, hey, we need a doctor of sciences to be talking about climate change. And I said, there seems to be a weird reality that requirement is only for the issue of climate change, but nothing else. I don't have a PhD in economics or planning, and I work in both of those. And so, just any barriers that anyone came against that, that were put in your way, or just things that were said to you, just the common things that, that people might have heard or will hear in the future that might kind of make them want to step back, and, something that we could do to kind of empower so that you could take that step forward. So like I said, it was really just denying the naysayers of, one, that you don't have the background to get involved, or that whatever you're going to do won't matter. Any of those things, I really just kind of, they all fell on deaf ear. I didn't, step away from wisdom, but just the naysayers. And I would say the one thing, and of all the topics and all the goals we've achieved, even if they're at local level, I think one of the most important take homes from all of those is that you can change things if you're willing to put forth the work to do it. Everyone had told me, no, you can never change anything. Those people had never tried. We really tried, and we've made progress. And it really was just because of collectivism and a lot of hard work. And so that's what was so successful. But I just kind of throw it up to the group if you've encountered anything, or if there's, any information you'd like to share about, kind of taking that next step and, kind of stepping through those barriers or climbing over those walls.
I'd like to take that on for just a sec. I've heard the naysayers for sure too. And I think that the way I look at this issue is that I look at the slate of solutions that are proposed to address climate change. And I look at those and I see that they are just great to enhance all of our lifestyles, right? Like what bad would come out of renewable energy so that there's less pollution in the air that's affecting kids and asthma, right? Like how is that solution's not like that's only going to be good stuff, right? Like I look at like more livable communities, shorter distances to work, less commuting, and all these kind of structural changes we could make that's just going to enhance our lifestyles and allow us to spend more quality time with people that we love. And so I look at addressing climate change as just like really, how do we design a better, higher quality life for all of us, right?
Well, one of the things that I see that has come out of this local condition with the COVID virus, people are not commuting as much, and some are moving up here to Tahoe so they can work out of here. We have a workshop over here in Tahoe that we're started, and so that's filling up. I think that we're changing. People aren't traveling. Airlines are in trouble. I mean, there should be airlines, but maybe not as many going long distances for vacations and things. I think, though, that we're learning something from this, and I'm hoping that all of you kind of consider what's changed here. I mean, quite frankly, it's a little boring now. I want to go out to restaurants and things and kind of, enjoy the environment here. But I think people are not traveling long distances to work. People are thinking more about how to make their homes work. And I know that Google has a program now where none of their workers have to come into work for the next 2 years, or at least a lot of them don't. If you can program and you look at the program and it's good, you're done. Now, you can't do that with all jobs, but I think if we kind of learn what we're doing here, that might help all of us. We'll have to think about that more.
That's actually one of the success stories as well. The TRPA had, before COVID, as these things go, was working on a Tahoe commutes plan. And one of the strong components of that plan was encouraging people to work from home. You had a lot of barriers to that historically that have now to some degree been removed. And I can now speak to, I know the city is participating in the Tahoe commutes plan, encouraging people to work remotely, and as well as the South Tahoe Public Utility District. And so, COVID has provided some interesting opportunities, especially in the world of transit, to reduce our carbon footprint. And I think to Sarah's point, and this has been one of my things with the Tahoe commutes, is there's a lot of folks, there's the time you're at work and there's the time you're driving to work, but there's a lot of time spent prepping to get to work, right? So imagine you're not spending that time in the bathroom and you're not doing all these different things. You're getting hours every day. So, I mean, I think Sarah's on the complete path. It's not just you're doing this to remove your carbon footprint, although you are. It also is a huge quality of life benefit to you and your family. And I think a lot of things in climate change, really fall within that world.
Hey, there's several chats that I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And go ahead, Trish.
I was just, there's several chats or questions I wanted to highlight. I think Sarah Green had asked about other communities that could be modeled. And then there's a question about, talking across political lines and overcoming that barrier. And then I think just in general, there's so many, it's helpful, I think, when there's concrete examples of where you actually see change. With climate change and this climate countdown clock and the IPCC panel saying this is how much we have to reduce emissions by, I think it's helpful to have a way to be like, this is what we're doing. And so I think specifically John mentioned the Solar Seed Fund. So that's like a program that's the city of Salt Lake Tahoe is actually the leader on, and it's one firm that is responding to multiple requests for proposals from a collection of communities throughout the Sierra that want to put solar on the municipalities, which is really great. And then I know we have some people from Truckee on. There is a really great Truckee North Tahoe Citizens Climate Lobby chapter. I think it's worth noting that both Truckee and the city of South Lake Tahoe have both pledged to support the Carbon Fee and Dividend Act, which is the Citizens Climate Lobby effort to put a price on carbon as a way to incentivize reducing less carbon. And those little actions are important because they can be translated up to congressional level representatives where you say, wow, look at, there's 10 communities in your district that you represent. They've all pledged to support the Carbon Fee and Dividend Act. You better support it too. I think, those types of initiatives and actions add up, and I think there's consistently, there's an increased interest in quantifying how many greenhouse gas emissions we are emitting as a region and tracking that over time. I know TRPA is doing that right now. They're doing another GHG inventory update. Their first one was done in 2013 maybe, and so they're looking at that right now and saying, have we gone up or have we gone down? What's our trajectory? What do we need to change? So I know that the California Tahoe Conservancy is doing a lot of climate adaptation stuff that I'm not tracking as much, but just to provide a sense that there are agency level tracking of what our carbon emissions are and trying to figure out how we can reduce them. And I think the more they hear from everybody that you must do this is a absolute priority, the higher of priority it is, and the more potentially the braver and bolder those solutions can be. And there are so much good technology in it, and I think the change is possible. So that's all.
I want to answer, that's great. And I want to answer Sarah's question specifically. I put two things in response in the Q&A chat about sustainable tourism. One community that we can look at that I believe the city of South Lake Tahoe council members and staff in the past visited is Park City, Utah. And they have a, let's see, what's the name of their, keep the snow white, travel green, or something like that. Connecting sustainable tourism with, being part of the climate solution, which is needed to not lose all of our snowpack, which we're certainly facing in Lake Tahoe, right? Warming winters with more rain than snow threatens the viability of, skiing and our whole way of life here. So check out what they're doing in Park City. As one example, there's certainly, I think, communities in Colorado that have taken steps in this direction. And then, all of our communities, none of them are perfect, we all have room for improvement, but there is, TRPA recently signed on as a founding signatory to these sustainable tourism practices. And I also posted that, the Q&A chat. It's 13 principles for sustainable, regenerative, eco, whatever you want to call it, tourism. And, certainly one of the things is, reducing carbon footprint of visitation. And also when we think about sustainability, don't forget the human piece, equity, making sure that, that something that is sustainable also means livable wage jobs for local residents that are shared broadly by all segments of the community, that, really benefits local businesses and local enterprise who in turn are, responding creatively to the climate challenge, right? It improves quality of life when you can bike and when you can travel, I just imagine if in a future scenario where, people are able to travel to the basin and around the basin outside of their private automobile in electric microtransit or hop on, hop off buses and electric ferries or whatever. That's going to make a really better experience at walkable, bikeable community centers. All those things I think are elements they've tried to do in Park City. And things that we could build on here, but it'll take just, none of us has all the answers. None of us can do it alone. So whether it's engagement at the city council with a 100% renewable committee or, whatever way to jump in, just take all of us looking at different possibilities and figuring out how to bring us together and I think, and Rebecca had a question about across party lines. I think some of these things like this, like community, less traffic. Who in the community doesn't want less traffic, right? I mean, or places where you can actually go into a town center and walk around and run into your friends and build community. Maybe have a conversation with someone who has a different political viewpoint. Those things happen in community, and those things are also climate solutions. So I think there's a lot of possibilities in bringing our community together around these kind of broadly supported solutions that also, reduce carbon and put people to work, et cetera.
Please go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing too. We're not in an agricultural area here, but it's just down from as we're going in forests where people are building in, and you've got agricultural land and that. But there's a program on Netflix called Kiss the Ground, and it's about agriculture and how we're growing things. And that could apply to forest cleaning and things like that. I'd strongly recommend getting on Netflix and take a look at that. But I think you're right, John. I mean, we're doing a lot here, and we're all going to do more. I think this is a great start. I'm glad that I'm a part of this, and I hope our community is really reflecting on this and what our thoughts are. Anyway, Sarah, I know we're getting in, so I'm going to pass it up to you.
Such great points, all of you today. And I know we're kind of headed toward the turn of the hour, and I think that maybe, Nick, we can wrap up by us just giving a couple of sentences about the webinar we're going to be hosting this week and invite people to join us. So maybe we can go in progression of the week, Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday to Friday, like that.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. So no, I turn it off to Tuesday. So Bob, you're up for Tuesday.
Okay. So we have what's called a science in college, and I approached the science department about a seminar on global warming. It's really open to the community, but the science people got very excited. We've actually got 6 kids out of the science program who will be asking questions. Bonnie will be giving a slideshow. It's really effective. It's kind of it's a live slideshow. One slide leads to another. So it's really good. We've tested it out and that works well. And we've also got the high school is going to have certain classes that are going to watch that. So the community is welcome to see that, particularly children who might be, a little younger, but for a more mature audience, they could look too. But we're looking forward to it. I think it'll be great.
So it's rated PG? It's rated PG?
PG, yeah, it is PG. It's before fire or something. No, I think it's
mature audiences. All right, Wednesday.
Wait, no, there's another one on Tuesday.
Oh no.
There's also an earlier session on Tuesday at 10:45 that I'm hosting with the founders of the South Lake Tahoe Sunrise Movement and South Lake Tahoe Hub, a couple youth activists in town, and we're going to be working directly with a student class at the high school who also be participating in that discussion. And that includes just, it's focused on youth activists and some of their messaging, and then tying in some of the findings from one of the high school students classes who's been assigned to look into various climate change stats around South Lake Tahoe.
Back to you, John.
Okay. So Wednesday, yes, come learn about workforce training programs in development that are meant to provide training for folks who want a career change, who want to work for part of the solution, certainly targeting for engagement, folks that are unemployed, underemployed, folks in our Latino and Hispanic community that are often left out of the environmental economy that we have here, in particular, to get training in fields like solar installation, EV charging installation, these goals that we're talking about that stem from 100% renewable that are manifest in the city putting on solar equal jobs. Every megawatt of solar we're installing is 25 jobs. It's a lot of jobs coming down the pike to get to 100%. Just for example, energy efficiency, learn how to, get employed in meeting energy efficiency goals for residents, businesses, municipalities. And then a huge sector, another success story we should talk about, or, all the various work happening to make us less prone to the catastrophic wildfire. My wife, Kim Carr, a success story, got an $800,000 grant from Lake Tahoe Community College for a healthy forest and job placement program. That's huge. That's a huge success story that's driven by the need to have healthy forests where we're reducing fuels from this forest. So she's got the program going at the community college that's just getting kind of inaugurated now. So she'll be on the call Wednesday along, we'll have folks from Grid Alternatives talking about solar installation. We'll have Kim talking about this career track towards reducing wildfire risk. And then and then we're going to be talking about the idea of taking wood from those healthy forest projects to be milled locally by people like Frank Cody Tree Services, and then train other people to take that wood and build affordable green housing. Danny Webb from Sierra Sustainable Builders, right? Full circle, healthy forest, wood milling, build homes, along with our renewable energy economy. I think. And we'll also have Chris McNamara talking about trail building to have a low impact recreation community here. So the sky's the limit in terms of meeting our needs and making Tahoe sustainable, having local people locally work in those fields. And then we'll be talking about what we're currently planning and open to ideas of what else could be on the table in the future.
Sue, Thursday's webinar.
So I kind of gave an overview of at the beginning of what's going to happen on Thursday, but basically it's going to be a little bit on the importance of voting, how to find out whether or not your candidates believe in science, believe in climate change. Also how you as an individual can talk to your friends to make sure that they vote and are aware of the stand that different candidates have. And then we have invited some of the candidates to participate in the webinar. Bren Kennedy, who's running for Congress, Pamela Schwartz, who's running for State Senate, and then John and Christy running for City Council, Ron, who's running for Lake Valley Fire, and then Jenny Peterson running for the utility board. So it should be an interesting webinar. I hope you can attend.
Awesome, thanks, Sue. I'll talk about the Friday and Saturday webinars. On Friday, I'll be hosting and with a slate of 7 guests representing different organizations in town who are inviting you all, the attendees on this call and people in the community to join their efforts and volunteer with their organizations. They're addressing climate in different ways and at different levels. And Teresa, I see your question in the Q&A. One of my guests will be from South Tahoe Refuse. So I hope you join us on Friday to discuss those kind of personal level actions we can take regarding our waste with that special guest and others. And on Friday, I'm going to be hosting an event where I tie into that work that the TED organization has been doing in their countdown efforts. I put that link in the chat earlier on in the hour, countdown.ted.com. That really inspired all of us to see our small part in the grand scale of things going on in the course of climate action this year all over the world. And I'll tell you, I've joined a lot of their webinars recently and been really inspired to make so that I feel like my actions really matter. And they're put into the context of people doing really cool things all over the world in terms of climate action. And so that we reach that tipping point where we can really maintain a comfortable climate that allows our seas to stay at the right level and agriculture to grow and provide us our food indefinitely. So I'm looking at the chat there. I'm going to go ahead and drop the countdown link in the box. And with that, Nick, I'm going to turn it over back to you.
All right, we're right at 1 o'clock, so perfect timing. And just again, want to thank everyone, everyone that participated in the event today, and then everyone that joined and was able to watch. I think fundamentally the question has to be asked if anyone's interested in getting involved in climate change. If not me, then who? Yep. And if not now, then when? And I can give you the answer now. The answer is you. And the answer is right now. Right now. We don't have a minute to waste. Our forests are burning. When I got involved with climate change, our forests burning like they did 20 years ago was just a hypothetical, a theoretical world. It's happening now. The other things scientists are saying are also going to happen. So get involved now. The future depends on it. But thank you so much for your time today. And really, please feel free to join, or I really encourage you to join all the other events this week. A lot of energy went into them, but thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.